Wednesday at SEC Media Days saw Florida, Mississippi State, Alabama, and Texas all show up in Dallas. And all of them made news in different ways. And I'm going to go just on a generic overall takeaway first. I'm just going to take a shot at Texas. The Longhorns are thirsty for attention, guys. They are thirsty for attention. They tried to generate a ton of flash as if they're still in the Big 12 and they can run the show. And it feels like they're being allowed to by Greg Sankey with some of the scheduling that he's giving them and putting this in Dallas. But Steve Sarkisian went out and said that there was a police escort for the team from the airport to media days, as if that makes them unique. Texas has consistently gone out of their way for SEC media days to try to make the point that they are the premier SEC program now and that this is their conference and they think they're going to be able to run it like the Big 12. I think they secretly know they can't, so they're trying to generate more splash than they should. But the real story related to Texas out of SEC media days, I have to be honest, was a quarterback controversy that Sark may have accidentally leaked. Look, Quinn Ewers is a potential Heisman candidate. He shocked everybody by coming back this year. Steve Sarkisian randomly said that Texas is going to need both Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers this year. Why would he say that? That's a really weird thing to say because I would be under the assumption, I think most of us would be under the assumption, that if Texas ever needs Arch Manning this year, it's either because Quinn Ewers got hurt or because he's not performing up to the level that they expect him to, which could be possible because they're entering the SEC, even though they have arguably the easiest schedule in the SEC. So my question is, why did Steve Sarkisian say that? Yes, you're going to need Arch Manning after this year, and I do think he's still an amazing prospect. You know, depending on what he's got up here, he could end up being the best Manning because he's got Eli Manning's arm and he's got Archie Manning's athleticism and Cooper Manning's athleticism from what we understand. The question is if he has Peyton Manning's head, which outweighed everything among the Manning family. But it's weird that Steve Sarkisian would say they're going to need both quarterbacks. You're not going to hear Josh Heupel say we need both Nico Iamaleava and Jake Merklinger. Heck, even last year when Nico Iamaleava was the future of the program, you never heard him say we need both Joe Milton and Nico Iamaleava. You don't really say that. You never hear Brian Kelly say, you never heard Brian Kelly say last year, we need Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, even though everybody thought Nussmeier was the future of the program. That's a weird thing to say. And, I got to be honest, it lends itself to the idea that Steve Sarkisian is not as high on Quinn Ewers playing in the SEC as he was in the Big 12. I just don't know why you would say that. That's one of the first takeaways I got from the show yesterday and from the appearance. I don't really get why. I don't really get why they would say that. Texas, if Arch Manning is playing at Texas this year, there's an issue if it's anything beyond mop-up duty. Moving on from Texas, guys, Billy Napier's given up. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. Billy Napier has absolutely given up. He's a dead man walking. And it was very clear yesterday that was the case. Billy Napier went to SEC Media Days, already kind of humiliated because of the situation with the Colorado transfer. Now at Florida, Cormani McLean. It was a big splash when they landed him. And he reportedly is already getting in trouble. This has been just a story with Florida. Their recruiting has massively suffered, so they don't even have that to sell. There were rumors that he was dismissed from Florida, but those dismissals have been debunked. And then he goes to SEC Media Days, and it's very obvious that he's done. And I don't think everything at Florida is his fault. I think Florida was not administratively prepared for the NIL era. I think that they tried to rush one together, and it cost him, and Billy Napier just wants to coach. I do think Billy Napier has his own issues. I think he micromanages. I think he has too many analysts and too many cooks in the kitchen, and that confuses people. So I think that creates its own issues. I don't think Billy Napier doesn't know ball, though, and I don't think he's not a good guy. But he said yesterday, if you watched him, he said the Gators as a program are still a, quote, work in progress. You return a starting quarterback. You're entering your third year at the University of Florida. There is no scenario in which your third year at a program should you still be a work in progress relative to having 2 straight losing seasons. Now, yes, theoretically, you could say Josh Heupel and Tennessee are a work in progress from when he took over. He still hasn't gotten the roster to where he wants. But even so, he went 11-2 in 2022 and 9-4 in 2023. Finished off in the top 25 both years and has failed to have a losing season since taking over. This work in progress thing, you don't say that entering your third year. Now, it was, I'll just bring back a little bit of history. And entering 2012, Derek Dooley did say, you're not going to have Tennessee to kick around anymore. And then SEC teams had Tennessee to kick around anymore as they went 5-7. However, it was very clear that 2012 team was significantly better than 2011 and 2010. The 2012 team was in every game. They were a good defensive coordinator hire away from going 9-3 that year. And I think Derek Dooley knew that you can't just sit there and say in your third year at a program, yeah, we're still rebuilding. No, you're not. You can't keep rebuilding forever. This is an issue. Florida's done, guys. Billy Napier's done. I watched it yesterday. Now we're gonna have we have some interviews that Dave Hooker did at SEC Media Days with people covering Florida, Frank Frangie specifically, that suggest otherwise. But I've seen enough. Billy Napier's out the door after this year, and it's not fully his fault, but he does share some blame. The too many analysts is an issue. But he is a good guy. He's loyal. He keeps his word. The guy he promised all the guys he picked up at Louisiana with the Raging Cajuns his first year that he would be there as a 4-year guy, and he turned down offers after his third year. Billy Napier is a guy that you would love to develop and mentor your kid, but running a program, there's just too many issues there. And Florida itself is a disaster of a program too, with the way they're handling things. And I don't know if they're ever going to get it fixed. If they do, they're dangerous. But if they don't, there are some issues. Moving on to another team at SEC Media Days, Alabama. Kalen DeBoer is clearly doing the opposite approach of Nick Saban, and I kind of applaud it. He's being much more of a player's coach. He consistently says he's a player's coach. Well, he doesn't say it, but he's making it very clear with everything he does. He's a player's coach. He's trying to put his players out front and center. Now, there's still questions about Jalen Milroe in this offense. I got to be honest with you. Jalen Milroe is not Michael Penix, okay? Jalen Milroe is a first-read run guy. Nick Saban retooled the entire offense for him last year. Nick Saban pretty much ran the offense as a result. And Kalen DeBoer's offense depends much more on elite pocket passers or guys that can pick you apart like Michael Penix. So there are questions there, but it's very clear he's a player's coach. And quite honestly, with the level of intensity Saban brought to them for a long time, maybe this is exactly what they needed. Let me explain. Sometimes you can be pushed so hard, and it makes you better for it. And it does make you a better player, better person, or better at whatever you're doing. But then it can also be mentally draining. It sometimes actually helps more when you're push to be the best you can be, and then your boss or whoever's in charge of you kind of is a little bit more lax, and you already have those habits of pushing yourself so hard, but you don't feel the pressure from above, and it makes you perform at a high level. That could happen with Alabama this year. They have the talent. They have the players. The guys have been pushed and developed just like Nick Saban, by Nick Saban already. And they already have the number 1 recruiting class for next year. As of right now, the number 2 recruiting class. They're the hottest team on the recruiting trail. If that happens, those players could actually thrive this year for Kalen DeBoer because of what Nick Saban already did to push them. And then they just won't have the pressure from him the way under Kalen DeBoer, the way they would have from Nick Saban. As a result, you can see Alabama dominate this year. And if they dominate, they're going to maintain that recruiting class they have. And if they maintain that recruiting class they have, Kalen DeBoer's taking off. This program could actually start to remain elite and maintain the level of success that they had towards the end of Saban's tenure. You're not going to get what you had in the early 2010s with Saban when he won 3 national titles in 4 years, and when the college football playoff, even in the mid-2010s, was the Alabama Invitational. You're not going to get that, but you are possibly going to get a level of success that keeps them able to compete with Georgia. And that really stands out. And a lot of people like to say, oh, you never want to follow a legend. And I've broken with Jimmy Hyams on this. I've broken with John Adams on this. I've broken with Dave on this. The whole following a legend doesn't work out thing, that is humans psychologically creating a pattern that isn't there. What humans do, humans create patterns out of things just instinctually. Most head coaches fail, period. Most head coaches at big-time programs fail. They don't work out. Therefore, the majority of the time when a coach is following a legend, he's going to fail because the majority of the time coaches who are hired fails. But if you look at the success rate of coaches who follow legends at their programs, whatever your metric is of a successful hire, did they win a national title, or at lower levels, were they winning for a period of time? Whatever that metric is, the success rate of coaches who follow legends is probably no worse than the success rate of the coaches who are hired, period. Because you can point out Alabama struggling after they moved on from Bear Bryant. I can point out that Florida State followed Jimbo Fisher, followed Bobby Bowden, and went and won a national title. I can point that out because and no one bats an eye at that. I'm saying this whole following a legend thing, it doesn't really hold water. I mean, two different coaches now, Kevin Ollie and Dan Hurley, have followed Jim Calhoun at UConn in basketball. Both have won national championships. They followed legends and they won national titles. This whole following a legend doesn't work. Again, that's only true because coaches who are hired in general turn out to be failures most of the time. Tom Osborne followed a legend in Bob Devaney at Nebraska, and then he ended up winning 3 national titles. So I don't buy that, and I don't think that because Nick Saban was a legend, that's going to make Kalen DeBoer suffer. That's not true. The only way it can make him suffer is if the NIL collective at Alabama thinks there's still a discount to go there because of Nick Saban, but it doesn't seem like they do. It seems like they've gotten on board. So moving on, the last team that went to SEC Media Days, and I really want to bring them up, guys, and that would be Mississippi State. Mississippi State has the best new offensive mind as head coach in the country in Jeff Lebby. Jeff Lebby is making a point that his offense is about to take over, which is why he brought in a transfer quarterback who just arrived in the program with him to SEC Media Days. He brought in Baylor Bears transfer quarterback Blake Shapen. Jeff Lebby developed offenses for Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin in their 2 most successful years as head coach, 2018, Josh Heupel at UCF, 2021, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. I guess theoretically you could say Lane Kiffin was more successful this past year, but it's close. They were 10-2 both regular seasons. Jeff Lebby's an offensive genius. Mississippi State actually has a more cutting-edge offensive coach than they had when they hired Mike Leach. They are ready to take over at least the state of Mississippi, and they were throwing shots yesterday. Jeff Lebby called Lane Kiffin childish for Lane Kiffin's subtle digs at him on X, but then said, "But I respect him, though." Kind of epic troll move. And my favorite is Mississippi State linebacker John Lewis comes out and trashes Ole Miss, their come to the sip phrase, and he says, "We own the state." Mississippi State is one of the low-key underrated teams of 2024. I'm not saying they're a 10-2 team or something like that. I think they may be a 500 team, but they're going to catch teams off guard with their offense. And here's one of the hottest takes I have. Tennessee is going to have a harder time with Mississippi State this year than they will Florida. Yes, Tennessee will have a harder time with Mississippi State this year than they will Florida. By the time Florida is coming to Knoxville, Billy Napier will already be effectively fired. At best, they'll be 3-2. At worst, they could be 1-4 going into Knoxville and be written for dead already. Mississippi State, on the other hand, will face Tennessee in November, and they will be roughly a 500 or just below 500 team with a bowl bid on the line. And I think they're going to go all in. And Josh Heupel and Jeff Lebby know each other too well. That could be a dangerous game if Tennessee's not careful. And we know that Tennessee is prone to November collapses. See South Carolina in 2022. I think Jeff Lebby in 3 years will be doing at Mississippi State what Dan Mullen did at Mississippi State during that run. I think he's that good of an offensive coach. I would have hired him years ago. I could be wrong. I may miss this, but I've always been high on him. All the way back in 2018 when Jeremy Pruitt, after Tyson Helton left, replaced him with Jim Chaney's offensive coordinator, I thought Jeff Lebby should have been the guy. It's about time he got a head coaching job. I am telling you guys right now, watch out for Mississippi State.